So, in a shocking moment, Pete Hegseth has just said he will examine the promotion of fat people to leadership positions in the military and seek to stop them. And then, this is bonkers. No, it is not. No, it is not. And you know what's funny? I didn't actually choose to wear my military hat and to talk about this at the same time. That was actually serendipity because I saw this and I remembered, hey, I wanted to talk about this. And for some reason, I put on my hat this morning. I don't know why. And so, one of the crazy things about it is like I cannot tell. Like I got out in 2012. Okay, so it's been well over 12 years since I got out. And when I was in, it was absolutely a thing that you had chiefs and even some E6s. These are petty officer first class, chief, senior chief, master chief, who were fat. And I don't mean like, oh, they were, overweight and could pass rope and choke. That's not what I mean. I mean, they were fat. Like actually morbidly obese. There were officers who were also morbidly obese to the point where it was actually shameful. Now, the vast majority of these individuals did not actually work on any ships that I know of. The vast majority of them were desk jockeys, obviously, which gives less of an excuse if you really think about it, because you have more when you're not attached to a seagoing command. You tend to have more free time than otherwise, right? Because most of the time you don't have like duties that require you to work 18, 24-hour days, end over end to get some kind of maintenance done so that a ship can leave, right? Rarely when you're on shore duty does that the kind of thing happen. It does, but rarely. Unless you have a specific job where it's like that. But they're you just because you're in the military doesn't mean they can work you like a dog. There are rules, very much so. They can break them if they need to, but there needs to be a very good reason, like mission critical shit, like there's not going to be any nukes in the Atlantic if we don't get this done, right? Okay, suspend all the rules, everybody works, nobody quits, boom. I've done that. It sucks ass. It's just the way it is. And usually you get like a break afterwards because, if they work you like that and then you just go back to your regular shit, you're not going to be able to like do your job. But there was one man on my submarine who was morbidly obese. And funnily enough, he was fat, but he could pass the PRT. That was the only reason that it didn't fuck him up. Is because he could actually pass the PRT because he could swim. He had some kind of like fucking weird condition, and he put on a lot of extra weight, but he was also a gigantically strong man, like 6'4" and like 320, 350 pounds or something like that. Yeah, he's very, 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 very fat. But he's also built like a Mack truck, right? And could pass his PRT. And so other than him being on reprimand for, what was the thing? Being excessively overweight. That was literally what he was. Because he could pass, he passed well, in fact. They kind of just let him get away with it. But it was because he was physically fit. And so what I would say about this is that if you are actually physically fit, I really don't give a fuck how fat you are. If you are fit enough to do your job and to save the people around you if need be, right? And a lot of the reason that the standards for physicality are so lax in the Navy as a general thing over other branches, a lot of it has to do with the same reason the Air Force is because a lot of our jobs are technical, right? I turned wrenches and valves more than I ever did anything. That was the physicality that I had to deal with was being a fucking knuckle dragging mechanic in a 120 degree engine room, right? Or 50 degrees depending on which floor you're on, which deck. And so this is one of those things where I think there's a little need for pushback because unfortunately, because of the world we now live in, just being frank and a little off color is considered the like counterculture in politics as far as that's concerned. You're trying to be edgy and shit. And I get that. I do. Because a lot of this is more propaganda than anything else. Like people making fun of Pete Hegseth like he's a 12-year-old boy. And it's like, yeah, because it's what appeals to dudes, right? When you see stuff like that, if you're just a normal, regular American dude, like that kind of stuff does appeal to you when you talk when it comes to the military, right? The doing the shit like you're 12 years old. It's pretty funny. But I do agree with the sentiment in general. Now, my whole thing has always been things like BMI, and BMI does not accurately reflect the type of men that you can have in the military. It's one of the few cases in which this is correct, because like people like The Rock, right, Dwayne Johnson, are morbidly obese. If you just look at his BMI only, but he is like one of the swollest motherfuckers on the planet, right? Not necessarily like he is bodybuilder swole, right? I don't know. I don't think he's as cut as they are, but he's definitely that fucking big. And so when you look at BMI, his weight, his BMI would declare him morbidly obese due to the difference between his waist and his neck, because he's got like a thick trunk. This is the problem that I had in the military. Yes, I was overweight, but it was like I could run. I scored well above average on my run, well above average on push-ups, and well above average on sit-ups. So on all the metrics that of me being physically fit, I was green across the board and above average plus, right? I wasn't just above average. I was better than above average, but not like the best. Dude, I can't run like a 5-minute mile. That shit just wasn't, for me, that shit wasn't possible. My hip just, no. I got long ass legs and they hurt when I run. And they always have, and I always wondered why I had such trouble running. And then they allowed me to ride a bicycle one time for PRT, and that was it. That was it, baby. Because the thing about it is like if I need to, I can carry lots of weight and I can run a pretty good distance without fucking dying. But it hurts like the dickens because of the way my frame is. If I were short, you would call me a barrel of a man, but I'm not. So I have the barrel of a man body on tall ass legs. And so that's why my legs are like tree trunks. My wife calls me the mighty pine for other reasons we don't need to get into. Anyway, so I do agree with this sentiment that we do need to get individuals who are, especially if you're an officer, it's one of the things that non-military people don't really seem to understand, right? If your officers do not maintain the same standards as you, they do not inspire you to be better. Right? Now we can forgive this a little bit in like movies and stuff like that, like in Stargate SG-1, General Hammond wasn't the best exemplar of physical fitness, right? And to be fair, a lot of the generals I knew weren't the exemplars of physical fitness that you could possibly have. But many of them were physically fit for their age. Or actually, admirals, not generals. Like the subcommander admiral, the admiral for my subcommand was really old. But he was very physically fit. Very physically fit for his age. Like he could have contended with half of us in like, wrestling and shit like that. That's how physically fit he was. So, because there are a lot of dudes in the military that can pass the PRT that basically they run 3 miles a year. And what I mean by that is that you have to run 1.5 miles, I think, for the military, for the Navy PRT, and you do that twice a year. So you run 3 miles a year. Yep. And this is one of those things that I do believe that it could lead to, because this is the problem, right? When you come at it this hard, you end up getting rid of people like Donnelly. Excuse me, I shouldn't have used his name, but it doesn't matter. You get rid of people like Dude Bro, and this guy that I described on my submarine was an amazing sailor, 100% top notch, grade A badass when it came to being a nuclear electrician. He knew his job forwards and backwards. He knew everybody else. He knew half of everybody else's job forward and backward, and was a good leader and a good friend, right? This is the kind of guy you want in the military. And they didn't give him a big enough bonus to keep him in, and he got out. That's why he got out. But I could imagine them, tightening the PRT standards to the point where, yeah, you can pass the PRT with good stats, but you're still fat, so we're going to kick you out. It's like, because here's the thing, right? It is true that your brain doesn't work as well the fatter you are. And that usually has to do with the food that you eat, but it creates like weird kind of pressures and all kinds of other stuff. It just if you exercise and you maintain a decent weight, then your entire body just works better, including your brain. But if you are an actual high performer, then you should be allowed to, how should I put this, brush up against the rules a bit more without being punished overly for it, because you're needed. Right? Now, you could say, oh, yes, we should maintain the same strict standards, but see, that's where the word practicable comes in, right? When it's practicable. Because the United States Navy, especially like when you're on a submarine or a lot of the forces that are on ships, do you need to be strong? Yes. Do you need to be fast? Yes. But you don't need to run a mile on a ship. You might be running back and forth, so fair enough. But when emergencies happen, you're usually not running for sustained periods of time. Right? So the fact is that if you are good at your job, then getting a little leeway is perfectly fine. But that shouldn't mean that you should be morbidly obese and while you're sitting at a desk on a ship. Like, absolutely not, right? And it was one of those things that a lot of people just absolutely rebelled against in the enlisted portions. Even my engineer didn't like it, because he was like, me and him were kind of like the same body type. And so my first engineer was like me. He had like a gigantic trunk, but on like real giant tall legs. And, he told me he felt the same way that I did, that, I have to work really fucking hard to maintain my weight, because I love to eat, and I just pack on the pounds, and it doesn't feel, even when I'm on a diet and stuff like that, it feels like I don't lose weight, yada, yada, yada. And he and so it really bugs a lot of us when we work really hard to ensure that we are at least maintain the minimum standard of our body size, and then there are people in the upper echelons of commands that just get the fuck away with it, and they could fail PRT after PRT after PRT and nothing happens. And it's like, you can be good at your job, but you can't be so good at your job that you can literally just break the rules. Right? That is not cool. That is not cool. Like the whole Top Gun thing, where you can be that kind of individual, that really doesn't fly. Then because I feel the Top Gun, rebel in me, and yeah, but it'll cause you so much friction that it'll never fly. You gotta tamper that shit down. And you can absolutely do it for movies, because just like General Hammond, Hammond from Texas. I can't believe I remember that meme. That was so good. So yeah, I definitely think that we should, and this is the thing, it does say leadership positions. And so I do agree that while in the modern military, leaders don't really lead from the front anymore, like generals and stuff, that they should at least maintain the air that they actually give a fuck about standards. Because it is one of those things, is that when you are the leader of men, they follow your example. So if you hold them and yourself to a high example, they will meet it. But if you hold yourself to a low example and you hold them to a high example, they will hate you. And that's not good. That's not good at all. So, because like, here's the thing. You could be a fat general. You could be a fat admiral. But if they see you every day out running, right? Every day out exercising with them, and you're still fat, they'll cut you some slack. Because you're old. It happens, right? But if you're out there, if you're lifting and you're working out and you just happen to still be fat, a lot of people, like a lot of dudes, will be like, all right, yeah, sure, yeah. I understand that. Because there are dudes who do exercise, but they still eat too much, and they're still fat. And it's just like, okay, well, fair enough. So, on one hand, it really is one of these things where this is something that I think has been needed for a long time, that the military must maintain standards. We have the ability to. There's no reason that you shouldn't be able to, especially if you're not on a demanding sea command or something like that. Like you literally live on a base that has like how many gyms? You can find time. Like and here's the thing. Honestly, I the whole PT standard where you do group PT and stuff, I definitely think that the military should make more of an effort to include that in the workday, either before, middle, or after. Many times when you're in a training command, they do it. When I was on my sub command, we did it like 2 or 3 times a week. 3 times a week, I think it was. But it wasn't really. How should I put this? It was way more lax than I think it probably should have been. And I've heard tale that there are a lot of commands that don't do group PT at all. It's basically all self PT, and this is how you get individuals who are morbidly obese in command positions because they go to commands where they don't require it. Where not only is it a group building activity, but it literally maintains that they know you're actually exercising because you have to be there to do it. And I definitely think we should make a bigger effort for that, as well as making a bigger effort to put people in gyms or something like that. So if you're only doing self PT, you need to get with like a PT coordinator and be like make a workout plan or something like that, where you can be like, okay, this is what I'm going to be doing most of these days, and then you basically it's a honor system. So you say whether you do it or not or something like that. I'm just throwing out an example because if you can lie to yourself real easy. But it's a lot harder if you're trying to be an honest person and a good person to lie to someone who is trying to keep you physically fit, right? Obviously, people will do it. There absolutely are shitbags that will just lie to their face, no problem, don't care. But it is just an extra step of holding accountable that you have to look somebody who is your leader in the face and lie to them. Yeah. So there should be some leeway, but we cannot allow our standards to fall so far that we have the morbidly obese leading us in the military. It's bad for morale. It's definitely not a good look. And you cannot tell me that someone who is morbidly obese is such a fantastic leader that they don't deserve to either be reprimanded and forced to get into shape or get kicked out. Right? Because that's really what it boils down to. It's like, okay, you're fat. That's fine. Don't be fat no more. In a year, don't be fat. Can we do that? Okay. Right? That's really what should happen. And obviously you can in the military, it's usually one of those things. They don't just give you suggestions on how to do this, they make you do it. Right? When you're in boot camp, they put people on diets. They specifically if you're underweight, they'll make you eat all kinds of fucked up shit. Not like literally fucked up shit, just high calorie stuff to make you put on weight because you're burning thousands of calories a day when you're in boot camp just because of all the moving you're doing.